Subject: ex-wife asked for open marriage, so I divorced her. Hey, true story. My name's Jacob. I've watched enough of your videos to know that what I went through isn't unique, but when you're in it, when it's happening to you, it feels like your whole world is collapsing in slow motion. So here's my story. Olivia, we met at my company's Christmas party in 2017. It was one of those fancy events at a hotel ballroom. The company really went all out. Open bar, live music, the whole thing. I had been working there for about 5 years at that point, and I was finally at a point in my career where I was making good money, stable, and thinking about settling down. I wasn't looking for anyone that night, to be honest. I just went to have a few drinks, enjoy some food, and talk to people I only saw in passing around the office. But then I noticed her. She was one of the waitresses serving the tables, and she wasn't like the others. She had this way of making eye contact that made you feel like the only person in the room. She smiled every time she passed my table, and at one point, she made a little joke about how my coworkers were draining the wine faster than she could pour it. I laughed. We exchanged a few words, and I could tell immediately that she was flirting. It wasn't subtle. She was leaning in a little too close, touching my arm when she spoke. After dinner, most of my coworkers were heading out to the bar down the street to keep drinking, but I stayed behind. Part of me just wanted a little quiet, but truthfully, I wanted to talk to her. She was clearing the tables when I walked over and thanked her for the service. We started chatting about random things, how long she'd been working there, her plans for the holidays, the usual small talk. She mentioned she was also taking online courses for business administration and wanted to open her own catering company one day. She had ambition, and I liked that about her. When I told her I worked in logistics and operations, she seemed genuinely interested. I don't know if it was because she liked me or because she thought I could help her someday, but either way, the chemistry was there. Before I left, I told her she should let me take her out sometime. She smiled and said, "You have my number?" I said no, and she reached into her apron, pulled out a pen, and wrote it down on a napkin. That napkin ended up staying in my wallet for months, even after we started dating seriously. Funny how such a small thing can mean so much later on. We started dating shortly after New Year's. Things moved fast. She was funny, charming, and always seemed so interested in me. She'd ask about my day, cook for me, surprise me with little notes or texts. It felt real. It felt easy. I didn't notice the small red flags at first, how she'd always be on her phone, or how she'd go quiet when I asked certain questions about her past. I just thought she was private. After about 6 months, we were practically living together. She moved into my apartment, and by the 1-year mark, we were engaged. We got married the following summer. It was a small ceremony, mostly her family and a few of my close friends. Her parents were well off. They owned multiple rental properties in the area, and as a wedding gift, they offered us one of them to live in rent-free. At the time, it felt like a blessing. Looking back, it was one of the biggest mistakes of my life. We were married for 3 years, and I can tell you honestly, it got worse every single year. The first year was okay, maybe even good. We went on trips, went out often, spent weekends watching movies or hosting little dinner nights with friends. But somewhere in that second year, things started to shift. She became more distant. She stopped being affectionate. Sex went from being something we shared regularly to something that felt like an obligation. She'd spend hours scrolling through her phone, laughing at things I couldn't see, and when I'd ask, she'd say, "Just memes." But I knew it wasn't just memes. There was something else going on in her world that didn't include me. I started noticing how she was dressing differently too. When we first met, she was modest but classy. Over time, she started posting pictures of herself in more revealing clothes on Instagram. I remember one post. She had on this tight red dress, and the caption said, "Confidence is the best outfit." It got a bunch of comments from guys. When I brought it up, she said, "You're being insecure, Jacob." No, I wasn't insecure. I just saw the writing on the wall before she said it out loud. It was around the middle of our third year when everything blew up. I came home from work one evening, tired, just wanting to eat and relax, and she was sitting on the couch, acting strangely calm. She looked at me with this weird expression and said, "Can we talk?" I said sure, thinking maybe something serious happened. Then she said the dumbest sentence I've ever heard in my life. She said, "I think we should consider an open marriage." I froze for a second because I thought I misheard her. I said, "What?" She repeated it almost casually. "An open marriage. I think it could help us." Help us? I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so ridiculous. I asked her if she was seeing someone else. She said no, that she just wanted to explore, that monogamy is outdated, and that we could grow stronger if we were honest about our needs. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "No, absolutely not." She tried to backtrack, saying it was just a conversation starter, but I wasn't buying it. That's not a question that comes out of nowhere. It means she's already crossed some line, emotionally, mentally, maybe even physically. I didn't ask for details. I didn't want to know who, or how, or when. I just knew it was over. While she sat there fumbling through explanations, I got up, walked to the bedroom, and started packing my things. She followed me, crying, asking what I was doing. I said, "You want an open marriage? You're about to get one with yourself." I left that night and went straight to my brother's house. The next morning, I called a divorce lawyer. I told him the situation, and he said we could start drafting papers immediately. The fact that the house we were living in was owned by her family made things simple. I didn't want anything from her. I just wanted to be done. Over the next few weeks, she lost her mind trying to contact me. Texts, calls, emails. She'd send long paragraphs about how she made a mistake, that she didn't mean it, that she just wanted to spice things up. She even showed up at my brother's place once, crying in the driveway, begging me to talk. My brother told her to leave before he called the cops. I ignored her. I wasn't angry anymore, just done. The lawyer handled everything. I signed the documents, sent them over, and blocked her on everything except for one email account so the legal stuff could come through. During that time, I found out she'd been posting on social media about how communication is key in relationships and how men can't handle strong women. Classic projection. The closer we got to the hearing, the more desperate she became. She started sending photos of old memories, little love notes, even videos of herself crying. At one point, she sent me a voice message saying, "I'll never find someone who loves me like you did." And she was right. She won't. At the divorce hearing, she tried to play the victim. She showed up looking pitiful, talking about how I abandoned her and how she was just trying to fix the marriage. The judge wasn't buying it. Everything was clean and straightforward. No kids, no shared property, no alimony. I walked out of that courthouse free. The last thing she said to me that day, as we were leaving, was, "I thought you'd fight for us." I looked at her and said, "You fought for someone else, not me." I walked away and didn't look back. It's been over a year now since the divorce was finalized. Looking back, I don't think marriage is something I'll ever do again. It's not worth it. The risk far outweighs the reward. I gave that woman love, stability, loyalty, and she threw it away because she wanted to explore. Marriage today feels like a bad investment for men. You can do everything right and still lose it all in an instant because someone decides they're bored. I've seen guys in worse situations, losing their houses, paying alimony, fighting for custody of kids they barely get to see. I was lucky. I got out clean, but it still left a scar. It changes the way you look at relationships, the way you trust, the way you love. The crazy part is, even months after the divorce, she still tried to contact me. Random texts saying she missed me. I never replied. She went from being the woman I wanted to spend my life with to someone I wouldn't even share a cup of coffee with. True story, I'm not bitter. I'm just realistic now. I see the patterns. I see how men get trapped by guilt or manipulation or nostalgia, but I've learned that walking away is the most powerful thing a man can do when his respect is gone. How I got myself back together after the divorce. When I left that house and moved into my brother's spare room, I didn't realize how heavy everything had been until I finally sat down in silence. No arguments, no tension, no fake smiles, just peace and emptiness. For the first time in years, I could actually hear myself think, but that also meant I had to face everything I'd been avoiding. I felt betrayed, angry, humiliated, and stupid all at once. Not because I lost her, but because I let myself ignore all the warning signs leading up to that day. The first few weeks were rough. I won't sugarcoat it. I'd wake up in the middle of the night still half expecting to see her next to me. It's strange how routine becomes a ghost that haunts you. Even the smell of her perfume on one of my old jackets hit me like a punch in the chest. My brother tried to cheer me up. He told me straight up, "You did the right thing, man. Don't ever second guess walking away from disrespect." He's been divorced himself. His wife cheated on him back in 2014. So he knew that pain. Having him there was a lifeline. We'd sit out on his back porch at night with a couple of beers, and he'd remind me that this was my clean slate. "You're free now," he said. "Do something with it." That phrase stuck with me. Do something with it. So I did. The first thing I did was focus on getting my physical health back. During the marriage, I had let myself go. I wasn't obese or anything, but I was sluggish, out of shape, and tired all the time. My eating habits were terrible: takeout, beer, and stress snacking. I started small. I joined a local gym and made a commitment. 5 days a week, no excuses. The first few sessions were awful. I couldn't even bench what I used to in college. I remember looking at myself in the mirror one day and saying, "This isn't who you are." So I pushed harder. Within 3 months, I started seeing results, not just physically, but mentally. Every rep, every drop of sweat felt like I was letting go of the old me, the one who tolerated disrespect, who stayed silent, who kept trying to fix something that was already broken. I started cooking more too. My brother's girlfriend, now fiance, taught me how to actually prepare real meals. I didn't realize how therapeutic cooking could be. It became a small act of control, one thing in my life I could do right from start to finish, unlike that marriage that ended in disaster. After getting back in shape, I turned my attention to finances. During the marriage, I handled most of the bills, but because we were living in her house, I had this subconscious feeling like I was a guest in my own home. That dynamic had chipped away at me more than I realized. Once I left, I promised myself that I'd build something that was mine. I got a small 1-bedroom apartment about 30 minutes from work. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean, affordable, and peaceful. No arguments echoing down the hallway. No walking on eggshells. Just me and my own space. I saved aggressively. Cut out unnecessary expenses. No new clothes, no eating out, no drinking, except for the occasional weekend. I started putting more into my 401k, built an emergency fund, and even opened a separate investment account. My focus shifted completely. I didn't care about dating or social media or proving anything to anyone. I just wanted stability. One of the biggest lessons I learned from that divorce is that men lose themselves when they make someone else the center of their world. I gave too much time, too much attention, too much energy. I thought love meant sacrificing everything. Turns out love without self-respect is just self-destruction. So I started building myself back from the ground up. Work became a big part of that. I threw myself into my career. I took on new projects, volunteered for overtime, and within 6 months, I got promoted to operations manager. My boss pulled me aside one day and said, "Jacob, you've really stepped it up lately. Whatever's driving you, keep it going." I didn't tell him what was driving me. Pain. That's what it was. But pain can be fuel if you use it right. Outside of work, I started rediscovering hobbies I'd forgotten about. I bought a used motorcycle, something I always wanted but never got because my ex thought it was immature. I took weekend rides through the countryside, just me and the road. There's something freeing about that open air, the hum of the engine, and no one telling you what to do. I also got back into reading, books on finance, philosophy, and personal development. I started journaling too, writing down everything I felt. At first, it was just venting, anger, confusion, sadness. But over time, it turned into reflection. I began to see patterns, not just in her behavior, but in mine. I realized I ignored my own boundaries because I didn't want to lose her. I thought if I just loved her enough, she'd eventually be satisfied. But you can't fill a bottomless cup. Some people crave chaos, attention, and validation more than they crave love. Around the 8-month mark after the divorce, I ran into her by accident at a grocery store. It was a Sunday morning. I was picking up some things for meal prep, and I heard someone say my name behind me. I turned around and there she was. She looked surprised, maybe even nervous. She asked how I'd been. I said, "Good. You?" She said she'd been doing okay. That's when I noticed she didn't look like the same person anymore. She looked tired, worn out. There was no glow, no confidence, just guilt and regret written all over her face. She tried to make small talk, saying she'd been thinking about me and that she missed what we had. I didn't even entertain it. I told her that version of us doesn't exist anymore. She nodded and said, "I know. I just wish I hadn't ruined it." I said, "We all make choices," and walked away. I didn't look back. That encounter didn't hurt me like I thought it would. It actually gave me closure. Seeing her there, fragile, unsure, almost lost, reminded me why walking away was the best thing I ever did. After that, everything started to fall into place. My mental health improved drastically. I started sleeping better, eating better, smiling again. People at work noticed. Friends said I seemed lighter, more confident. One of my friends, Mark, invited me on a hiking trip with a group of guys. I almost said no because I was so used to keeping to myself, but I went, and it was exactly what I needed. Being out in nature, away from the noise, surrounded by people who had their own scars, reminded me that I wasn't alone. Every guy there had been through something, a bad marriage, a betrayal, a heartbreak. We shared stories around the campfire, laughed, and realized that no matter how bad things get, life keeps moving forward. When I came back from that trip, I decided it was time to take the next step in my healing. I went to therapy. I used to think therapy was just for people who couldn't handle things on their own, but it actually gave me a lot of clarity. My therapist helped me understand that I didn't fail. I just chose someone who wasn't ready to value what I offered. She said something I'll never forget. Some people only love you as long as you make them feel good about themselves. The moment you stop feeding their ego, they start looking elsewhere. That hit me like a ton of bricks because that was exactly what happened. My ex didn't want partnership. She wanted validation. And when I stopped being her emotional mirror, she tried to find someone else to do the job. By the 1-year anniversary of the divorce, I was in a completely different place. I had paid off my car, built a solid savings cushion, and was seriously considering buying property. Not a big house, just something small that was mine, my own space. I even started mentoring one of the younger guys at work who was going through a rough patch with his girlfriend. I told him the same thing my brother told me. Don't lose yourself trying to prove your worth to someone who's already decided they can do better. I'm not anti-relationship, but I'm definitely anti-disrespect. Around this time, I started dating again, casually. Nothing serious, just dinner, conversation, getting to know people. But I'll be honest, my guard was up. I didn't trust easily, and I made it clear what I would and wouldn't tolerate. Some women called it cold, but I call it standards. One woman I met, her name was Elise, was actually a decent person. We dated for a couple of months, and she respected my boundaries. We had fun, but eventually I realized I wasn't ready for anything serious. She understood, no drama, no games, just mutual respect. That experience reminded me that not everyone is like my ex. There are still good women out there. They're just rare. Now, it's been over 2 years since I left my marriage, and I can honestly say I'm the best version of myself I've ever been. I'm in shape, financially stable, mentally clear, and most importantly, at peace. If any man listening to your channel takes something from my story, let it be this: never negotiate your self-respect. The moment someone asks you to lower your standards, that's your cue to walk. Don't waste time trying to convince someone to see your worth. That's not love. That's desperation. I used to think losing my wife was the worst thing that could happen to me. Turns out it was the best thing, because I didn't just lose her, I found me. Now when I look back, I don't feel bitterness. I feel gratitude. That experience forced me to grow. It stripped away everything fake and showed me what really matters: peace, purpose, and self-respect. I don't know if I'll ever remarry, and honestly, I don't care. My life doesn't need to revolve around that idea anymore. I'm happy building, traveling, learning, and living on my own terms. I've got plans to start my own logistics consulting business soon, something I always dreamed of doing but never had the time or confidence for. Now I do. Funny how losing someone can give you the freedom to finally focus on yourself. So yeah, that's where I am now, true story. Rebuilt, stronger, wiser. If my ex ever happens to stumble across your channel and hears this, I hope she knows I don't hate her. I just don't care anymore. And that indifference, that peace, is something she'll never understand. It all taught me lessons I wish I'd known in my 20s. If I did, I would have saved myself years of frustration, confusion, and wasted energy trying to make someone else happy while I slowly lost myself in the process. Let me start by saying this: I'll never marry again. Not out of bitterness, not because I hate women, but because I've seen what marriage has become, especially for men in today's world. It's not about love anymore. It's about leverage. It's about who can take what if things go wrong. And let's be real, things usually go wrong. When I was younger, I thought marriage meant loyalty, teamwork, and shared goals. I grew up watching my parents stick it out for decades, through everything. My dad worked long hours, my mom raised us, and they didn't have social media distractions or open relationship nonsense. They just made it work. But that was a different time. Today, marriage feels like walking into a casino where the house always wins, and men are the ones betting everything they have. After my divorce, people kept telling me, "Don't give up on love, Jacob." But it's not about giving up on love. It's about recognizing what's real and what's not. Love is simple. People complicate it. Society, movies, influencers, they all push this fantasy that you're not complete until you find someone. That's a lie. You're complete the moment you start valuing yourself enough not to chase validation from anyone else. When I think back to how I used to live, it's almost embarrassing. Every decision I made revolved around making her happy. Where we'd go, what we'd eat, how we'd decorate the house, even what I wore sometimes. I became so focused on pleasing her that I stopped checking in with myself. I stopped asking, is this what I want? I thought sacrifice was love, but there's a thin line between compromise and self-erasure. The truth is, I learned more about relationships by being alone than I ever did while I was married. When you're alone, You're forced to face your own habits, your own strengths and weaknesses. You learn discipline. You learn peace. You learn that you don't need to be needed. You just need to be fulfilled. I've had friends come to me after watching your channel, telling me they're going through something similar. One of my buddies, Tom, called me about 3 months ago. He said his wife had started talking about wanting to find herself and asked if he'd be open to taking a break. I told him flat out, she's already found someone else. That might sound harsh, but men need honesty, not comfort. A woman doesn't start talking about breaks or open marriages unless she's already emotionally invested somewhere else. He tried to rationalize it, saying maybe she just needed space. I told him, you don't give space to someone who's looking for an exit. You open the door and let them walk out. A few weeks later, he found messages on her phone from a coworker. Same old story. When he called me, he said, I should have listened to you. I told him, no, you just had to learn like I did, the hard way. And that's why I'm writing this part, true story, because too many men are living in a fog. They've been conditioned to believe that their purpose in life is to serve, protect, and provide, even for people who don't respect them. They measure their worth by how much they can give, not by how much they've built for themselves. When I finally got my peace back, I realized something simple. Happiness isn't something you chase, it's something you build. You don't find it in another person. You create it through discipline, consistency, and purpose. My mornings look completely different now. I wake up early, around 5:30, go for a jog, hit the gym, and then make breakfast while listening to podcasts or audiobooks. I don't wake up to arguments or cold shoulders anymore. I don't walk on eggshells wondering what mood someone's in. My home feels like mine. Every inch of it represents independence. And when you get to that place, when peace becomes your baseline, you start seeing how chaotic most people's relationships really are. Couples arguing in public, people snooping through each other's phones, emotional manipulation disguised as communication. It's insanity, yet it's normalized. Men today are told that if they want to be loved, they need to constantly prove their worth. But I say this from experience. If you have to prove your worth, you're already dealing with someone who doesn't see it. You shouldn't have to perform for love. What I've come to understand is that most men lose themselves chasing the illusion of partnership. They think being a good man means giving endlessly, tolerating disrespect, and being understanding of bad behavior. Meanwhile, their dreams die, their health declines, and their confidence fades. I watched it happen to myself, and I've watched it happen to countless other men. So now, my advice to every man I meet, especially the younger ones, is simple. Build yourself first. Don't rush into relationships. Don't hand over your peace for companionship. Learn how to enjoy solitude. Learn how to be happy without needing anyone else to validate you. You want to know what real freedom feels like. It's coming home to silence and feeling at peace, not lonely. It's spending your money how you want without asking permission. It's focusing on your goals, your health, your future, without distractions. After the divorce, I started investing more in myself. I took courses online, started a side business consulting for small transport companies, and even started traveling more. I went to Colorado, Tennessee, and Arizona just to clear my mind and explore places I'd never been. And you know what? Those trips felt better than any vacation I took during my marriage. Why? Because I wasn't pretending to be happy. There's something powerful about being content on your own. It's like reclaiming control over your own narrative. I'm not saying life is perfect, it's not. But I'll take peaceful solitude over a toxic partnership any day. People ask me sometimes if I'd ever consider dating seriously again. My answer, maybe, but marriage, never. I've seen how easily the system can be weaponized against men. One signature and you're legally bound to someone who can destroy you emotionally and financially. I don't need that. I can have companionship without contracts. I can enjoy connection without commitment papers. Love doesn't need a government stamp to be real. And let's be honest, the moment a man signs those papers, his leverage disappears. Society tells women they're the prize, but I don't buy into that anymore. The prize is peace. The prize is purpose. The prize is a man who's in control of his time, his money, and his emotions. I used to think my worth was tied to being a husband, a provider, a partner. Now I see my worth in what I've built for myself, my discipline, my focus, my growth, and I wish more men understood that. There's a guy I work with younger than me, maybe 28. He just got engaged and was talking about how marriage is a partnership. I told him, I hope so, but make sure it's a partnership, not a power struggle. He laughed it off, but I could tell he didn't get it yet. Most men don't, not until they've gone through what I did. Crazy how blind you can be when you're in love. You ignore the signs, excuse the disrespect, rationalize the manipulation. But when it's over, you look back and realize you were living on borrowed peace. Peace that was only there when things went her way. If I could go back and talk to my younger self, I'd tell him, don't rush into marriage. Don't hand your future over to someone who might one day decide they're bored. Build your own empire first. Be the man you want to be before you invite someone else into your life. That way, if she leaves, but you stay whole. I think one of the biggest shifts in my mindset came when I stopped seeing being single as a problem. Society makes men feel like being single is some kind of failure. Like if you don't have a woman by your side, something's wrong with you. But I see it differently now. Being single isn't lonely. Being with the wrong person is. My peace isn't negotiable anymore. I don't entertain drama, manipulation, or disrespect. I don't argue. I don't chase. I don't explain myself to people who twist words to win battles that don't even matter. I used to waste hours trying to get my ex to understand me. Now I realize people hear what they want to hear. These days, I spend my time doing things that feed my soul, hiking, biking, reading, learning new skills. I've been taking night classes in financial analytics just to expand my career options. I go fishing on weekends, spend time with my nephews, and occasionally grab dinner with friends. My life isn't flashy, but it's mine. I've even started writing down lessons I've learned, kind of a personal philosophy book for myself. Not to publish or anything, just something to reflect on. One of the notes I wrote recently was this: the man who masters solitude will never be controlled by anyone. And I believe that with every fiber of my being. Once you learn how to be content on your own, you become untouchable. You stop chasing approval. You stop fearing loss. You start living from strength instead of desperation. When I think about marriage now, I don't see love. I see risk. Not emotional risk, but legal and financial risk. The modern system is designed to protect one side, and it's not ours. I've seen good men lose their homes, their kids, their savings, all because they trusted the wrong person. People can call me cynical, but I call it realistic. I've lived it. I've watched the courts turn simple divorces into emotional bloodbaths. I've watched women cry in front of judges and walk out with half of everything a man worked for. And even though I walked away clean, I saw how close I came to losing years of my life to something that didn't even exist anymore. That's why I focus on self-preservation now, not selfishness, self-preservation. It's about keeping your peace, your sanity, your sense of self. I've learned to say no more often. I've learned that walking away doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong enough to choose yourself. If there's one message I want to get across in this email, it's this. Men, stop pouring from an empty cup. Stop trying to make people happy at the expense of your own peace. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. You can't love someone into loyalty. The best investment you'll ever make is in yourself. your body, your mind, your future. Build skills, save money, travel, experience life, and most importantly, protect your energy. Because once it's gone, you can't get it back. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have looked like if I'd never married her. Maybe I'd have saved more, traveled earlier, lived freer. But honestly, I don't regret it anymore. That chapter taught me everything I needed to learn about people and about myself. Now, when I look at couples arguing in restaurants or online, I don't judge them. I just quietly thank the universe that I'm no longer trapped in that cycle. I'm free. And I'm telling you, true story, freedom tastes better than any fleeting romance ever could. If I ever do find someone worth being with again, it'll be because she adds peace, not problems. But marriage? No. That contract's expired in my mind. My loyalty belongs to my peace now. Thanks for letting me share my journey through all three parts. I started off heartbroken, then rebuilding, and now fulfilled. I'm living proof that no matter how broken you feel after betrayal, you can rebuild stronger than before. Keep doing what you're doing. True story. Men out here need these messages. The truth saves more lives than people realize.